You know, I'm trying to remember.
To put up the memory antenna.
Yes. Hey, it's Sue.
And Megan,
the Spine Breakers.
And today we are doing a March reading wrap-up.
Yep. And while we're doing that, we're gonna drink this, just a really nice beer from Bell's Brewing, which is in Michigan.
I think it's in
Comstock,
Michigan.
It's a good Midwestern polite beer.
Oh.
And it's an easy drinking golden ale.
Yep. It's just low ABV, just kind of chill. Slow sipping.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. But it has little like Midwesternisms on it. Like, yeah, no, for sure.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
Watch for deer.
Yeah. So.
I bought it because it was funny, so. And also Bell's makes good beer, so I was like, it's funny and also it's Bell's, so it's gotta be good.
All right, so I finished, I think 7 books.
Killed it, and I finished 5.
So I will begin.
Yes.
The first book that I read was The Hole by Hiroko Oyamada and translated from the Japanese by David Boyd. And this is kind of a trippy little novel about this woman who moves from the city to her husband's hometown, kind of a smaller town. And when she's there, like, weird things start happening, and it's kind of like loosely based on Alice in Wonderland. I every time I read Japanese literature, I kind of just feel like I don't get it, but that I had fun.
It was a wild ride, but it was a fun one.
And that is kind of how I felt when I finished this, but I did buddy read this with Amber from Amber Unabridged and Sam from Sarcasm and Sci-Fi. And Amber is a lot more well-versed in Japanese literature than I am, and so she had some really good insights into what this book was actually about. And then I also looked up some articles, some reviews online that were talking about what the book was about.
Okay.
So I know that it's kind of talking about the social pressures that are put on people in Japan, but especially women, to fill certain roles and be certain things. And the main character's kind of, at first, kind of rebelling against that, I would say. And so weird things are happening. But I enjoyed it, and I think I gave it 3.5 stars.
Sounds interesting. So the first book that I finished was The Broken Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, which is the second book in the Inheritance trilogy. So I don't want to say a whole lot about it just because I don't want to spoil it. It's hard to talk about sequels and stuff without giving spoilers, but N.K. Jemisin is just like a masterful world builder. She does a fantastic job of really building these worlds and then like immersing you in them. But I also feel like she doesn't sacrifice character development to do that, because I do feel like her stories are still pretty character driven too. So I feel like it's just a really full-bodied story. It's really fun, high fantasy. So like I said, without wanting to spoil it, the basic premise of the first book is that, you know, this person finds out that or they get summoned to the capital city because apparently they're related to like the ruling family, and so they're summoned there on some business. And so it's this world where like gods and humans coexist, have children together, which are then either like demons or godlings or whatever. And so they're all trying to coexist in this world, and gods are kind of figuring out that like they kind of fuck stuff up when they interfere with human life. So, but yeah, it was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it.
The next book I finished was a audiobook, and it was My Sister, the Serial Killer, by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and it was read by Adepero Oduye. So this book's set in Nigeria, and it follows a woman named Korede, and she has a sister, a younger sister, who her boyfriends keep dying. She's often, you know, has been the one that killed them, but she's claiming it's self-defense every time, and, you know, but it's a little suspicious. But Corday always helps her sister, helps her cover these things up, and etc. It's really a lot about her and her relationship with her sister, although her sister really isn't a main character.
Okay.
It's very much all about Corday, but it is definitely more about her relationship with her sister. But a lot of the kind of more negative or mediocre reviews I saw of this book, I feel like were people who were expecting it to be a thriller or something, or a mystery. So it is not that. Don't go into it expecting it to be that, because it is not. But I really, really enjoyed this book a lot. Like, it was very short, and it was kind of one of those where I was like, I feel like I could read this forever or listen to it forever, I guess. Yeah, I really loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like it would be more like 4.5. I don't know why I gave it 4 instead of more than that, but I think I would have, if I read it, like physically read it, I feel like maybe I would enjoy it more, just because that's my preferred method of consuming books, because the narrator did a great job. Like, I had no complaints. Unless it's a nonfiction book, I have a hard time giving audiobooks 5 stars, but that's not fair. That's not anything against audiobooks. It's just me not necessarily being like an auditory learner type of person. So I often like space out when I'm listening to things.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way too. Like, it's hard for me to rate an audiobook as a 5-star book. So the next book that I finished was an audiobook, and it was a collection of essays called Call Them by Their True Names, American Crises. It's by Rebecca Solnit, and it was read by Cassandra Campbell. And this is just a collection of essays about various different like social topics in the United States. She talks about like how calling these things by their true names and like calling them out for what they are is kind of the first step to fixing them. And so she talks about feminist issues. She talks about how Donald Trump is obviously like a very toxic individual. She talks about just a lot of different things. I like Rebecca Solnit. I really liked Men Explain Things to Me that she wrote. So I give that 4 out of 5 stars. I dug it. It was a good listen.
Nice. The next book I finished was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Finally read something from my original If You Gotta Read It TBR.
Yes!
Here it is. This was actually on my TBR last year too, so I finally got to it. I'm sure you've seen this around BookTube. It's about a band called The Six. They're doing pretty well, but they collaborate with this other musician called Daisy Jones, and they have this like big smash record. But this kind of follows that period of time in the 70s when they were recording this record and when it came out, and there's the relationship between Daisy and the lead singer of The Six is tumultuous, but they have this like bond, but he's married, he's happily married to another woman, and so it creates a lot of tension. And it's the book is written as like a series of interviews between all the members of this band and other people associated with it. And I did really enjoy this. I definitely didn't like it as much as The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I did like this. There was a few things about it that I didn't care for. Like, there's one character in particular who I thought was just not a very realistic character. I was like, and they kind of tried to like humanize her toward the end and be like, she was really stubborn. So she wasn't perfect.
Because she was like, stubborn.
Okay.
Whatever.
And then there's something, I wouldn't call it a twist, but there's something revealed toward the end that the way it was revealed didn't make sense. And I understand why she like wanted that to be known, but it didn't make sense for it to be revealed, in my opinion.
Makes sense. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
And then the other thing is just like, I didn't feel like there was any distinction between the different voices of the characters. Like if it didn't have their names at the beginning of each of their segments,
you wouldn't know who was saying what.
I probably would have no idea who was speaking. So those are kind of my complaints just about the writing of it, which we were talking about this book with Lindy. And she said something that I agree with, which was that Taylor Jenkins Reid tells a really good story, but her writing's just kind of okay. And yeah, I think that was definitely true in this book. But I did really like it still, and one thing that I thought was she did a really good job of is that as I was reading it, I like really wanted to hear these songs.
Same. I was like, I want to hear this fucking album.
Yeah, like I was like, man, I wish this was a real band so I could listen to the songs while I was reading this book. So I do think that she did a lot of things really well.
Yeah.
So I ended up giving it 4 stars.
Very
overall.
Cool. No, I dug it, but I agree with you about your beefs with it.
Yeah.
I agree with you on those. So then the next book that I finished was The Kingdom of Gods by N.K. Jemisin, which is the 3rd book in the Inheritance trilogy. Again, this is just, it's about a world where gods coexist with humans, and I mean, it's not a spoiler because it's like literally in the description I just looked up on Goodreads, but like the gods have been like set free. They had been imprisoned and now they are set free. But I really dug it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think probably my favorite book in that trilogy was the first one, but they were all really good. But yeah, Kingdom of Gods was about one of my least favorite characters from the other books, and like I didn't dislike this character, I just was kind of indifferent to them.
Right.
And so at first I was kind of like, what are you doing here, N.K. Jemisin? But I trusted N.K. Jemisin, which you should always do, and it worked out for me. So it was really good. So I'd say the turning point for me was probably like a third or half of the way through the book. Like I wasn't hating it, but I was still just kind of like, don't really care. But then like a third of the way through it, I was like, I suddenly do very much care. So it was still really good.
The next book I finished was The Refrigerator Monologues by Catherynne and Valente and illustrated by Annie Wu. And this is a collection of stories, but they're all connected. They're all about women in comic books, like superhero comics, who are refrigerated, which means that they're killed or otherwise harmed to further the story of the male hero. In this collection, they're like in the afterlife, and they have this club called the Hell Half Club where they get together and like tell their stories. And so each story is about one of these women from the Hell Half Club. It is about like actual characters that do exist in superhero comics, but of course she can't use the real names and stuff. Right. So that was one thing that I kind of found fun about it, was trying to figure out who the stories were about, because I'm not like super well versed in superheroes, but most of them like you could figure it out if you're like even remotely knowledgeable about superhero stuff. You'll probably would be able to get them right away, but I was just making like educated guesses, and I got the only one I didn't figure out on my own was the first one. But I really loved this, like more than I was expecting to. I thought it was fantastic, and I gave it 5 stars.
Nice.
I really like Catherynne and Valente's writing too. This is the second book I've read by her, and I just love her writing style.
That was the first book I've read of hers, but it definitely did make me want to read more of her stuff, because I really liked it also.
Yeah.
So the 4th book I finished was The Awakened Kingdom by N.K. Jemisin, because when I find a fucking series I like, I have to do the whole thing. So this is I think it's a novella. I don't think it's a full novel. Maybe it is a full novel. No, it's a novella. And it's set in the same universe as the Inheritance trilogy, but it's not a part of the trilogy. And it was pretty good. And I think it's about the birth of a new god. And so it's about this like baby god trying to figure out who they are.
Oh, baby god.
Baby god. And so one of like a main god from the trilogy is no longer, and so this baby god is trying to figure out like if they're supposed to take that one's place, or because they don't really feel like that's authentic, so like they're trying to figure out who they are and where they fit in the universe and what their like true purpose is. So it was good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Trust N.K. Jemisin, man. Read N.K. Jemisin. It's good stuff.
The next book I finished was The Vanishing Half by Brit, Bennett. And this is about two women who are twins. They grew up in this really small town in Louisiana, and they're both black, but they are very light-skinned, so they could pass for white if they wanted to. But when they're 17, they both leave this town, go to the big city, and one of them ends up marrying a black man, a very dark-skinned black man, and having a daughter with him, and the other one ends up marrying a white man and passing herself as white, and having a daughter with him. And so the book follows both of them on their separate paths, and also their daughters on their separate paths. It has a lot to do with colorism, both in the United States in general, and also within the black community. I really loved this.
It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I've been hearing amazing things about it for a while, and I get it. Man. It's great.
It's good stuff.
So, the only thing about it is, like, I would say that there's a lot of just, coincidences that happen that are maybe not realistic.
That's
It's like it's not that they couldn't happen. It's just not very likely.
That's fair.
But yeah, I still really loved it. I didn't even care.
Did not even. It was so good you could suspend disbelief.
Yeah. So I gave it 5 stars. Loved it.
The last book that I finished in March was The Witches of New York by Amy McKay. And I listened to that on audiobook. Who read it? Doesn't even say. And this is the right version. But anywho, so I listened to it on audiobook. So this is the story of a girl who is, I think or young woman, she's 17 to 19, somewhere in that age range. And she wants to believe in magic, and she wants to experience the world. And so she kind of sets out on this quest to find out, like, are witches real? Like, is this real? Is magic real? And so she applies for an ad to go work in a tea shop in New York. And she applies because in the ad it said, those averse to magic need not apply. And she's like, haha. And so she does, and come to find out that, magic is real and witches are real. And she finds herself kind of in the world of, I think it's late 18, early 1900s, like spiritualism, where they've got like mediums and people who can see spirits. And of course, a lot of them are hacks, but she finds out that some of them are not. And it was kind of a sweet, fun, supernatural story. I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was kind of historical fiction mixed with ghosts and witches, and that's pretty cool to me. Nice. So I was into it.
All right. Well, I finished 2 other audiobooks in the month of March, and the first one was Shit Actually, the definitive 100% objective guide to modern cinema by Lindy West, and read by the author. And this is Lindy West basically just like shitting on all your favorite movies. No, I mean, it kind of is, but she talks about mostly it's older movies from, maybe the early 2000s and earlier. Mm-hmm. Mostly early 2000s, 90s, maybe some 80s as well. Yeah, she's just like talking about if they like hold up. Mm-hmm. And talking about all the things that are wrong with them. But it's really funny. Like, you have to enjoy it, I think you have to go into it with like a sense of humor and thinking like it's comedy.
Yeah. Well, and Lindy West is like very like sharp and witty, and that's kind of what you're getting yourself into.
And she, like, I laughed out loud multiple times listening to this book. And I love Lindy West. She's so funny, and she's a great writer. But yeah, she tears apart, as the title would imply. She talks about Love Actually and tears that one apart. Yeah. She talks about like Top Gun, Forrest Gump, Harry Potter, like just a bunch of really well-known films. And like, my only complaint is something that's my fault, which is that I wish that I had seen all of the movies that she's talking about, because there were definitely a few that I hadn't seen. But she still, I mean, she tells the whole plot when she's talking about it, so it's not like I really
like missing out.
I still knew what she was talking about. It just would have been nice if I like had seen it myself.
So like the full context.
Yeah. But I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was a great time.
I really want to read that or listen to it now because it sounds like a lot of fun. So.
Great fun. Does Sasha desperately need outside?
Do you want to go outside? Can you use your words, please?
Or, well, I was going to say I only have one book to talk about, so we could finish real quick.
Why don't you wait just a minute?
She's like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
All right.
You already had me use my words, mother.
I used my words, mother. That means you let me out.
All right, so the last book I finished was Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, and this was read by Joe Jemisin, and it's a romance.
Ooh.
About this guy who his father is a famous musician, but he doesn't have a relationship with his father, but because he's related to him, he kind of like is a minor celebrity. Like he ends up in the tabloids sometimes. He ends up in the tabloids and is kind of painted in a bad light, and it threatens his job security. So in order to improve his image, he and his friends decide that he should date a very, upstanding,
wholesome
man to improve his image and make him seem less like a party boy, which is not really a party boy. He just kind of gets painted in that light. So he ends up like fake dating this guy who is a lawyer, I think, or a defense attorney, something like that. I don't remember.
Something.
And then, as you could imagine, real romance maybe happens.
Love ensues. Maybe.
Yeah. But I really liked this one. It had, a lot of my favorite romance tropes, like fake dating, opposites attract, oops, there's only one bed.
I like oops, there's only one bed. I do like that one.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. My only complaint with it would be that I felt like there was side characters who were definitely comic relief type of characters. Okay. And sometimes the segments with those characters would kind of go on too long. Where I'm one of them's just blathering on about something and I'm like, okay, we get it. You're
wrap
stupid,
it up.
And it's funny.
Come on. Move the narrative.
So that would be my only complaint, but overall I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice romance. I liked the 2 main characters. I liked them together, even though the main guy was kind of a miserable asshole.
Oh.
But part of his character arc is that he realizes I'm being a miserable asshole.
Maybe I should do something about that.
Shit together. But he was a likable miserable asshole in my opinion.
Okay.
But I did enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars.
Very nice.
So that was it.
March was a good reading month.
It was a good reading month for both of us.
It really was.
Yeah.
I read most of a fucking series, so.
Yep. And this beer's pretty good. It's a nice, light, refreshing golden ale.
Nice for a hot day or whatever, but yeah, it's not anything that I would, that really stands out as wow, this is incredible, but it is a nice, easy drinking. It's low ABV. It's only 4.5%. So if it's a hot day and you want to just pound them down, then.
So is it good? No, yeah.
No, yeah. No, yeah.
Let us know your thoughts on any of these books that we read. How was your March reading month? Hello, Schmurfles. Incoming Murphy.
Incoming Moof.
You gonna sniff my leg where you were sitting? You're gonna smell your own butt on my thigh?
He's well, I'm too weird shaped to smell my own butt normally, so this is the only chance I get.
Yeah, but thanks for watching.
And let us I don't even know what I'm talking about. I got distracted. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.